Bob. Good, how are you?
Good.
So, everybody ready with the cameras? We, obviously today, the camp last day. Can you kind of summarize what you've seen so far for camp?
Yeah. I thought our guys have done an outstanding job. Really in the details and the discipline that it takes to go through a preseason camp. I think they've come out every day with kind of a mindset of how do I improve, and that's really always been what we're doing. We're about the process, and so can we be better today than we were yesterday? And I think our guys have really embraced that. Keith Bell deserves a lot of credit because he's with them for so long. So from January to today, or to camp starting on the 2nd, KB's had a great effect on them, and I think the players have really understood that. And it's, comparing themselves to themselves, not to anybody else, and how can they grow? Camp for us is about growth, not comfort. And I think the players embrace that, so we're excited. They're excited about today. But as we talked about, it's not over. It's really just the beginning. So what happens now is we'll take tomorrow off, and then we'll start game week on Sunday and get ready for a really good Coastal team.
Coach, you arguably have had a lot of evaluation due, maybe even more than past years. Where are you at in evaluating who will be the starter for in terms of the quarterback?
We're exactly right where we want to be.
Does the quarterbacks in the quarterback room, do they know who the starter will be?
No, because we haven't got into that.
How far along in the process are you in kind of selecting who that starter will be?
We're at day 28 of that. So we're right where we want to be. We'll have a starter when we get rolling for Coastal.
Last time we talked about this, you did it 2 days before the Cincinnati game when it was Wilton and those guys. Did you like that timeline? Was that a good in retrospect?
Honestly, don't even remember that timeline. So
okay.
The fact that it was 2 days before, I don't remember that.
Sure.
Sorry if I missed this, but I've been wondering, how's your dog?
He's good. He actually has 6-week X-rays coming on next Friday. But he's moving around back. He doesn't feel sorry for himself, so he took it full speed. We got to slow him down a little bit because he doesn't. I don't think he still understands that he got hurt, but he's getting back there. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no, I've been wondering.
Yeah.
Chip, when you're determining starters at certain positions,
yeah.
and you don't have any live periods during August, can it be tough sometimes? Because let's say Carson Steele breaks tackles, right? And you will not have really seen that in practice.
We see it full speed. The only thing we don't do is we don't take people to the ground. So we're full speed blocking. We're full speed coming off of blocks. Which guys are in position to make a tackle? Not a guy that's sticking an arm out and saying, "Hey, I got him." Are they in position to sink their hips, bend their knees, and tap off on the hip? So it's simulating what a tackle would be. So how many guys on our defensive side of the ball can get themselves in a position to make a tackle? The only thing we don't do is just take guys to the ground. But if you ask our O-line and D-line and told them that it's not live, then they'd look at you a little sideways because we come off the football, we double team, we do pods, we do everything. It's a tough, hard-nosed physical practice. The only thing we don't do is we do not cut block our defensive players because we don't want anybody on the ground, and we just don't tackle to the ground.
Going back to your quarterbacks, what have you seen from some of the younger guys on your roster, Justin, Dante, from this entire offseason? Like, what has been your evaluation?
Yeah, I've seen growth, and I've seen those guys. Part of what our mantra is getting better every day. So, the difference between maybe them and Ethan and Colin is they just don't have the experience. They obviously have the talent, but I've seen them grow. And then as we continue to go through situations, we got a 2-minute drill today, we got a red zone drill today. We've seen those guys grow in those certain situations, and if mistakes were made the first time they did the 2-minute drill, the next time they do the 2-minute drill, they've corrected that mistake. So the one thing about those guys that's been really impressive is they grow.
And obviously, Colin, the oldest, probably the most experienced at quarterback. What has been your evaluation of him throughout
He's
camp?
been exactly what we thought he was. He's a really, really talented player that's got a lot of experience and a lot of snaps underneath his belt, and really has a unique skill set. He's probably the biggest in the group. Justin's the biggest, but Colin's probably the second biggest, and can really run. He's got a strong arm. He's a really talented player, so I'm really impressed with him.
Would you characterize that competition as particularly very close, or?
Oh yeah, it's close,
yeah.
And that's a good thing. I think we have at all positions here more depth than we've had in the past, which is a positive because you're going to have to lean into that. So we look at it as a positive at all positions, whether it be wide receiver, tight end, inside linebacker. We have a lot of players at inside linebacker that have played a lot of football for us and will play a lot of football for us. So D-line is like that. There's a lot of spots where we have more depth than we've had in the past, so that's a positive.
How's Kamari Ramsey done?
Yeah.
And you foresee him getting some playing time this year?
Oh yes, yeah. I think Kamari's been outstanding. we consciously redshirted him last year, so we actually didn't play him in the Cal game, so we could play him in the bowl game, so that he had 4. But he's been outstanding at both safety spots, and you'll see a lot of Kamari. I think he's got a very, very, very bright future.
Terry's earned himself a backup spot in Cleveland.
He has?
Yeah, apparently.
Did they do that yet?
It
I
looks
thought
like
cuts
it.
were next Tuesday.
I don't know if it was
Didn't they
officially
trade-
named, but
didn't they
it
trade
looks
the-
they traded
the
him, so it
guy-
looks like
Who did they
he's
trade?
in line.
Who did they trade?
Dobbs.
Yeah.
Dobbs.
Josh?
Oh, yeah.
Is Kellen Mount still there?
They cut him.
They
cut
cut
him?
him. So
So they got
Looking
2?
like-
ipso.
The only thing I love Dorian, I will just share with this, is no position is safe. Because they could trade for somebody on Monday and you're like, hey, I was the backup for 2 days. So,
Fair.
but he deserves it. I've talked to him a few times. I thought he's played really, really well in the preseason. And I'm happy for him. But the people around here that have seen him on a daily basis, it's not a surprise to us. I saw Coach Stefanski this summer, and he marveled and was telling me about how well Dorian worked in the off-season program, in the OTAs, and the minicamp, and he was excited about what his preseason camp was going to be for him. So I think they know what they had when they got him. So.
Usually you're asked about the evaluation of players and not coaches, but since you have a new defensive coordinator that's been here throughohout camp, what have
he's
you
been
seen?
there since last February. So.
Yeah, what have you seen out of him that you
Yeah.
kind of liked how he
Dan's
incorporated his
outstanding.
style?
I think he's a really, really good teacher. Very impressed with him in the classroom in front of the entire defense. Just going over what our schemes are and what he wants and his vision for what our defense will look like. He does a great job with the coaching staff and watching the staff meetings, in terms of how they interact. And he's really collaborative because we have a lot of really talented coaches on that side of the ball. And I think they all have a piece in what this is. It's not, whether it's our offense or our defense, it's not one coach's offense or defense. It's the entire coaching staff's. So I think he's done a really good job there, and I love his demeanor and his ability to teach on the field and how he thinks in in-game situations, because we do a lot of situation work. That's not only good for our players, but it's really good for the coaching staff to understand. We could be first and 10 on the 50-yard line, but we throw a 40-yard pass, and now we're in the red zone, and we've got to be able to react. And offense may try to hurry up and do something, but the defense has to be able to combat that. And he's done a really good job of that so far during this preseason.
Do you think that the defense will look much different from last season?
Yeah, I think because there's different players and different personalities over there. So, you talked about Kamari Ramsey, and our safeties. We have 2 new safeties that we're going to have because Mo Austin's not here, Blaylock's not here, to replace some of those guys. But the other core nucleus is back, so we'll look a little bit different maybe on the back end. But we're excited about where they're headed.
But in terms of scheme and what Coach Lynn brings kind of to the table?
Same thing. I think football's football. It's 11 on 11, so there may be tweaks here and there, but it's still, we've got to be able to get off blocks. We've got to be able to tackle well in space, and we've got to be able to keep the ball in front of us, and we need to be able to affect the quarterback.
Who are some of the other younger guys that you could see maybe getting some playing time? Like you're talking about defensive backfield, Corey Stewart, Isaiah Newcomb. How has Grant Bucky also looked? I've got some reports that he's been impressive.
Yeah, Buck's been really impressive, and I think sometimes the early enrollees will stick out a little bit more than some of the kids that got here in June, just because of time served. Is that they got a better understanding. Part of being able to play fast is not being tentative. Part of not being tentative is knowing what you're doing. So if you just got here and your first practice was August 2nd, it's totally different than if you got here on January 2nd. So Bucky's done a really nice job up front. I think Donovan Palat at linebacker is a young player that's really stood out, but he can be a linebacker, he can be a safety. He's a real versatile player for us. So I know Danton's doing a lot of different things with Donovan and how we can deploy him. And part of our discussions today and tomorrow is with young guys that have the redshirt ability, like where are we using them? Are they guys you want to try to get them if they deserve to and they've earned it? Can you play them in 4 games? Or in Kamari's situation, he played in 4 games, but then he still has an opportunity to redshirt. So that new rule, I think, is something that in the past you didn't have to think about, because if you played them, it burned it. Now you can get those guys experience. So there's those are 2 guys on the defense that stand out that we need to have discussions about as a staff about where they'll fit in, because not only will they play defensively, if you are going to play them in a game, then you need to get them in on special teams also, because what you don't want to do is play a kid for 2. He played in 2 snaps in the Coastal Carolina game. That counts as 1 game. Well, then why did we play him? That's not. You got to kind of plan that out a little bit better so that you have a really good understanding of what you're doing and trying to get that working.
And if you feel you want to retain the red shirt, you wouldn't necessarily play him on special teams throughout the season, right?
No, you wouldn't play him on special teams throughout the season, but you play him in that game. So whatever 4 games, and that's
those
really
4
the
games,
discussion.
yeah.
In those 4 games, what I don't want is a kid used a game and for 3 snaps. Well, then why did we play him?
Right.
If we're going to put him in, then he needs to get defensive snaps, he needs to get special team snaps, and we need to use him. If not, then we don't worry about it. But that's really where we're, those are the ones that you worry about. Is that did you have a kid that used 4 games, but 2 of the games he didn't even really play. So if we're going to play him, we have to play him.
Right.
When we spoke to Ethan earlier in camp, he made a point to single out that there was no resentment in this quarterback room. How important is it with so many varying degrees of experience for that professionalism to kind of show out?
Yeah, I think that's kind of pervasive throughout the team, which is unique about this group. I think this team is really connected. I think they genuinely care about each other, and they're happy when other people have success. There's not a selfish gene where I want to win, but I don't want him to play really well because that's going to take playing time away from me. I think they all have to make sacrifices, and I think that's one of the definitions of mental toughness. Am I going to do something when it doesn't benefit me, but it benefits the team? And we have guys like that. Ethan's a prime example of it, but I think that room has got a bunch of really mature, and I think that's really what it is. It's a sign of maturity. That you want everybody to be successful. You want everybody to be at their best at their ability, because you're not sure when you count on it. Because you could be named the starter and on the second play of the game roll your ankle. Well, you better hope that number 2 and number 3 and number 4 are ready to go play the game, because you want the team to win. So it's I think it's more of having a selfless attitude than a selfish attitude, and I don't see many selfish players on this team, which is a real good thing.
I'm always standing on this side of you, so I didn't really notice it today, but it looks like you got a bracelet on. Is that? Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's my wife and my 3 dogs.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you for noticing.
Is it new, or I just wasn't
I've had this
observing
for
before?
a couple years.
All right.
We've all seen it, Ben.
Coach.
We good?
Thanks, Coach.